What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Theglove's Zone Boxing channel, where today we have an absolutely massive announcement that's just rocked the entire internet, shook up the boxing world, and turned every single fight fan's head because, yes, it's real, it's official, it's happening. Jake Paul is fighting Mike Tyson on July 20th at a T&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, and if you're sitting there thinking, wait, what? Jake Paul versus Iron Mike Tyson? How is this even possible? Trust me, you're not alone, because when the news broke, it felt like the kind of headline you'd only see in a parody meme or some kind of fan-made video, not something that would actually go down in real life. But it's real, and it's scheduled to be streamed live on Netflix, which is another huge game-changing part of this, because for the first time in the history of streaming entertainment, Netflix, the biggest platform on earth with over 260 million subscribers worldwide, is getting into the boxing business in the most dramatic and polarizing way imaginable by hosting one of the wildest generational crossover fights of all time. And look, before we even get into predictions or breakdowns or dissecting all the backlash or exploring every angle that has set the internet on fire, let's just appreciate the sheer magnitude of what's happening here. Jake Paul, a YouTuber turned professional boxer, a guy who started out fighting fellow content creators like Digi in 2018, is now, 6 years later, walking into a ring with Mike Tyson, a literal icon of the sport. A former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, a man whose name is synonymous with knockout power and fear. And regardless of what you think about Jake Paul, whether you love him, hate him, respect the hustle, or think he's a clown, you cannot deny the levels to this move. This is not just a fight, this is a moment in cultural history. It's one of those things that makes you realize how far Jake Paul has come and how strange yet spectacular the boxing world has become in the age of influencers and crossover spectacles. And yeah, sure, we get it, Mike Tyson is 57 years old, he's not in his prime anymore, he hasn't fought professionally in decades, and there are going to be thousands of purists out there clutching their pearls screaming this is a disgrace to boxing. But listen, man, you've got to take a step back and recognize what this is entertainment, this is spectacle, this is modern boxing. And yes, there are legitimate concerns and valid criticisms, and we'll address those too, but if you're just looking at this from the perspective of what makes a massive fight, something people actually want to tune into, then this checks every single box. And you know what's interesting about this whole thing is that everyone wants to act outraged about Jake Paul fighting older opponents. They want to say he cherry picks. They want to say he's not a real boxer, but let's not act like every pro boxer in their early career isn't doing the exact same thing, padding their records with journeymen and nobodies and washed up names. The only difference is Jake Paul is doing it under the brightest spotlight imaginable in front of millions of people on pay-per-view or now on Netflix, and with his every move being scrutinized to a level that no traditional prospect ever has to deal with. And that's really what makes this different. It's not that Jake is doing something unprecedented, it's that he's doing it where everyone can see and react in real time. And when it comes to the Tyson fight specifically, let's also be real about this. Jake's not fighting prime Tyson, he's fighting 57-year-old Tyson, who yes, still looks like an absolute menace on the pads, yes, still has insane power, and yes, still moves better than most guys half his age, but he's also not the guy who walked through Michael Spinks in 91 seconds, or the guy who sent Trevor Berbick flying across the canvas. He's older, now he's slower, and this is going to be a very calculated event. But you know what else Jake Paul isn't? He's not a world champion, he's not a lifelong boxer, he's a guy who's only been doing this for 6 years, had no amateur career, didn't come up through the ranks like other fighters did. He's learning on the job, and whether you like him or not, you've got to admit that taking a fight like this takes balls, because say what you want about Tyson's age, power is the last thing to go, and if that man connects clean on your chin, you're going to sleep. And Jake knows that he's aware of the risk, but he's also aware of the reward, and this is one of those high-risk, high-reward scenarios that only comes around once in a lifetime. And listen, it's not like Jake's the only guy doing this either. You've got Logan Paul fighting Floyd Mayweather, Digi fighting Floyd KSI, trying to get Wayne Rooney in a ring, and all of a sudden everyone's pretending to care about fighter safety now that Jake's fighting Tyson. But where was that concern when Misfits put Simple Simon, a guy in his 50s with no experience, in against a much younger opponent, or when they had severely mismatched weight fights happening or forced rehydration clauses to try and give their guy an advantage. Where was all that outrage when Joe Fournier, a 40-year-old nightclub owner, was brought in to fight KSI and then got elbowed into unconsciousness, or when they had people like Swarms and Pineda who were clearly outmatched step into the ring for the sake of content and circus spectacle? No one batted an eye then, but the moment Jake gets Mike Tyson in the ring, everyone's suddenly a moral authority on fighter safety and age-appropriate matchmaking. Give me a break, the hypocrisy is ridiculous. And the thing is, if it were KSI fighting Mike Tyson, or if Misfits had booked this event, you know damn well they'd all be cheering it as the biggest moment in crossover boxing history and patting themselves on the back for making it happen. But because it's Jake, and because he's not on their roster, and because they're not making money from it, now it's an issue, now it's exploitation, now it's dangerous. And look, I get it, Mike Tyson is a legend, and there's always going to be a section of fans who don't want to see their heroes back in the ring, especially against a much younger man. But this isn't like Evander Holyfield getting slept in Florida. This isn't a desperate cash grab from a washed fighter. Tyson has been training hard. He looked solid in that exhibition with Roy Jones Jr. a few years ago, and he's been active in the gym ever since. This is a guy who takes his conditioning seriously, who's still got some fire left, and who would not be stepping into this if he didn't feel confident in his ability to deliver. And again, Jake Paul is not a seasoned vet. He's not some 20-year pro looking to pick on an old man. This is a guy with less than 10 fights who has shown clear improvements, but is still very much learning and evolving, and who has never fought a real heavyweight before, never been hit by a guy with the kind of raw power Tyson possesses. So if you think this is some easy walk in the park for Jake, then you're out of your mind. There is very real danger in this fight, and it goes both ways, and that's what makes it so intriguing. It's unpredictable, it's high stakes, it's legacy altering for both men, because if Jake wins, people will say, oh, he beat an old man. But if he loses, the internet is going to explode with laughter and mocking, and they'll say, see, we told you he's a fraud, and Tyson just gave the world what it wanted. So there's pressure on both sides, and that's what makes it compelling. That's why people are going to tune in whether they love it or hate it, and that's why Netflix getting involved is such a huge game changer. This is the biggest streaming platform in the world stepping into combat sports, and they picked this fight to do it. That tells you everything you need to know about how big this is and how massive the potential reach will be. We're talking tens of millions of viewers minimum. We're talking about a whole new audience discovering boxing through this event, and whether it's a purist version of the sport or not, it doesn't matter. Because boxing at its core has always been about spectacle, it's always been about big moments and big personalities, and that's exactly what this is. And look, let's also not forget about the personal stakes here for Jake Paul. This isn't just a payday, this isn't just a flex, this is about continuing to prove the doubters wrong every step of the way, because ever since that loss to Tommy Fury, people were writing him off, saying it's over, saying the experiment failed. But now here he is announcing the biggest fight of his career on the biggest platform in the world, and watching as all those same people melt down on social media with anger and disbelief. And yeah, the salt is real, the contradictions are laughable, and the reactions have been nothing short of entertaining in their own right. But the truth is, this fight is going to be huge, and everyone knows it. Even the haters deep down know they're going to be watching on July 20th. They know they'll be glued to the screen waiting to see what happens, and that's the power of this moment. It transcends traditional boxing, it transcends content creation. It's a cultural collision of two generations, two eras, and two icons in their own right. And whether you like it or not, it's happening, and it's going to be a moment in history. Now, as far as predictions go, look, it's tough to say right now, because there's still a lot we don't know about how the fight will be sanctioned, whether it'll be an exhibition or a pro bout, how many rounds they'll go, what the rules will be, and all of that matters. But assuming it's a pro fight, and assuming both guys are going in there to win, then I think this is going to be a very competitive bout. Jake is younger, more active, has better cardio, and is constantly improving with every camp, but Tyson has that raw power, that timing, and that killer instinct that you just don't lose with age. And while his reflexes might not be what they were, his technique, his movement, and most importantly, his punching power are still lethal. And if he catches Jake with something early, this could end very quickly. But if Jake survives those first few rounds, if he weathers the storm, if he avoids that big shot and takes Tyson into the later rounds, then I think his youth and conditioning could start to take over and he could outpoint him and win a decision, but make no mistake, Jake will have to fight the perfect fight. He'll have to be defensively sound, he'll have to stick to the game plan, and he'll have to respect the danger. Tyson brings because one lapse in concentration, one mistake, one lazy jab, and it could be lights out. But again, just the fact that we're even having this conversation, just the fact that Jake Paul has made it this far, just the fact that he's in a position to make a fight like this happen shows you the level of impact he's had on boxing, and whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, it doesn't change the fact that he's here, he's doing it, and he's doing it bigger than anyone else right now. And so to all the critics, to all the doubters, to all the salty promoters and influencers crying foul play, maybe it's time to just admit that Jake Paul has figured this game out better than anyone and that he's not going anywhere. And on July 20th, when that bell rings and Jake Paul stands across the ring from Iron Mike Tyson in front of 80,000 fans in Texas and millions more watching live on Netflix, we'll all be witnessing something that we never thought we'd see, something that will go down in history, and something that proves once again that in this crazy world of modern boxing, literally anything is possible, and we'll be right there watching every second of it.